Our next presenter is Luciano Castillo, and Luciano, you have the floor.
Thank you, Cliff. It is a great pleasure and honor to be back. I would like to thank you for staying this afternoon. So what I want to talk to you today is about this idea that we've been working with many of my colleagues, including Rosalie Clausen, David Warsinger, Jay Gore, which is in the back, and Dev Niyogi, which is somewhere. And we put this team, and we have a consortium about 35 individuals. I'm sure you have seen this. But every time you see this picture, or U.S.-Mexico border, or everything that comes to you is negative, right? Nothing is positive. What we want to do is to convert the negative conversation to something optimistic that brings hope. In fact, we want to create the biggest opportunity corridor ever built in the world. And part of this is because there is a big challenge. Part of the challenge, if you remember early this year, there was a federal government shutdown. And that cost the government, Forbes estimated that this cost $11 billion. We also know that there are children detention centers. We also know that many families from Central America are escaping violence. And more importantly, they're looking for opportunities. And what we want to do, actually, when you look at some of these issues, is that the Southwest, the entire Southwest region, is a very good source of energy. However, we lack water. So what we're trying to do is not only to solve the conversation of the issues of the border in terms of opportunity, but also bring water security to the entire Southwest region. And I'm very glad about the previous talk, because if you look at California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, many of these states actually are in very severe drought index, if you think about it. And this is data that we computed over the past 14 years. Dark red represents regions of severe drought. And if you look here, this entire state, because it's a desert, we have tremendous sources of solar energy and wind. And Texas, by the way, have great sources of natural gas. Just in time, Tomas. And then what we have seen is that, for example, Texas, Texas uses 36% of the water from the ground. Arizona 43%, and New Mexico 87%. And actually, not only the levels are decreasing, but the salinity level of the water there is increasing. So this is indeed a crisis that all of those border states are facing. So what we're proposing here is let's solve this issue of the water in this region, bring energy, and bring water such that we could create prosperity. And by the way, by doing that, we deal with the issue of the border. One of the key important issues that we have found, and we published this in Scientific American, is that about roughly 45% of the water in the U.S. is used for cooling of many of these thermal power plants, which our friend gave a talk previously. So what we want to do here is the following. Can we develop an energy corridor, energy and water corridor, that will add, instead of a wall, we'll create basically an opportunity corridor. And basically, the whole idea is to blossom the desert. That's what we're trying to do here. And how are we going to do that? Well, we have to be very creative, and we're going to need a lot of help from many of you. So this is the whole idea. Even in spite of this negative conversation that happens about the border, $612 billion of the trading with the U.S. and Mexico happens. In fact, Mexico at that time was the third partner, the third trading partner. Right now, I believe is the first one. So the whole idea is to replace a concrete wall by basically an opportunity corridor. And the whole idea is that the opportunity corridor will happen by leveraging the excellent natural resources in sun, wind that we have, and actually the natural gas in the region to create energy security, and at the same time use these power plants, some of these plants, to desalinate the water in the Gulf, in the Pacific, and along the border region to prosper the region, which, by the way, will allow us to do agriculture. So this actually, not only we're doing energy security, food security, but at the same time, we're actually creating water security for the regions. And so this is the whole idea. This is how beautiful it should look. It should look even greener. But in essence, this is the whole proposition here. Now, the question is, could this be possible, right? And if you look at the analysis, this is some of the analysis that we did. This is the drought severity index. I showed you this before. If you look at the solar irradiation, This is the horizontal component. You could immediately see that Arizona, everything in yellow, will be tremendous source of solar energy. You could see Arizona, New Mexico, actually, great portion of Texas will be an excellent source of solar energy. The same with California. If you look at the wind class, Texas has one of the best wind classes in the country, and you could see that around the border is excellent wind resources. You also have it right here. New Mexico has both. New Mexico will have excellent wind, same as California. So one of the things we have done is to develop a correlation coefficient that allows you to indicate where can I use wind, where can I use solar, or where can I use both that mitigate the use of water. The argument here is the following. You do not want to use so much of the fossil fuel or nuclear reactors because they depend so much on water. You want to mitigate the use of sources that depends on water such that you could create this security. Everything in green means that you could have wind and solar that mitigates the use of water. So here in Texas, New Mexico, and here in California. The rest of this region, we have to rely on solar energy. And the whole idea is that you want to leverage the existing system, infrastructure that exists, to be able to make this economically viable. Now, this is the oil and shale gas, excellent in Texas, and some regions in California. So let me show you how we're going to do this. One of the things we're doing, first, you will see that the cost of desalinating water is very expensive and energy intensive. One of the things we have done is recruit some of my colleagues with expertise in water, and he has a patent that allows you to reduce the water usage in the reverse osmosis. That's one key element. The other one that we're doing is a unique contribution that instead of using a typical wind turbine where somebody's going to climb 100 meters, everything is going to be at the ground level and using hydraulics. This is a very big important, and the reason, okay, Elizabeth, and the reason is because you could reduce the cost of energy by 10 to 24%, and the water usage in the desalination roughly by 30%. So with this, I really wanted to stop here, but I wanted to point out some of the key development that we have done since last time. One of the things that we have done, the consortium have about 35 members from Stanford, Caltech, Rice, and many of the world-class universities, National Academy of Science. We're doing a what-if event. If we're lucky, we're going to get 2 Nobel laureates here. Hopefully you're going to see it. We're going to have a lot of fun. And then one of the goals here is to cement Purdue as a key leader in this humanitarian grand challenge. And the whole idea is that with friends, and one of the things we're doing, we have recruited Stacy in the policy and Krista in the policy area to help us with communication and leverage the policy. With this, I really want to thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to share more development with all of you. Thank you.
Luciano, thank you so much. We have time for a couple questions for Luciano.
Yes,
One.
Gary.
Luciano, how do you propose to transport the water? Because the water is a long ways away from many of that border areas.
Yes.
Particularly for agriculture.
Yeah. Excellent question, Gary. And obviously, it's very expensive to pump a lot of the water. So one of the things we want to do are 2 things. First, you want to leverage in the coast region, in the Gulf, the Pacific. We want to use some of the wind energy. Actually, some of the hydraulic wind turbines that we're using will allow us to follow the osmotic pressure, so you could reduce the cost there. So we want to use wind to do part of that. At the same time, we want to leverage the aquifers that we have along the border regions to clean that water, right? Because many of that water the salinity levels are very high, purify that water, and then use it locally. So we want to avoid trying to pump very long distances the water. Rather, we want to leverage to create the sustainability. But very good. And one of the things is that if we use AI, we could do irrigation locally. Very good question. Yes? Very good question. And we don't call it a wall. We call it an energy water corridor. And the idea here, we don't want to segregate people, okay? Our concept here is that by allowing, in fact, one project, and I didn't say it, one project that we're talking with Sempra is using the power lines that you have between US and Mexico and California, leverage that to share energy between the two countries. And the idea is to create an environment where the cooperation is enhanced. So it's not to divide the two countries, rather to create an opportunity corridor where we come together, people from Mexico will come to this site, work on agriculture, or work on engineering project, test new technologies. So it's used the entire region to test new technologies, but at the same time create new jobs and, for example, manufacturing jobs, right? If you go far downstream Mexico, hey, why don't you put it along the border regions? You reduce the transportation costs because you're right there, right? You're closer. So it's not to separate it. We're not pushing to have a wall. We're actually pushing to create an opportunity corridor. But it's energy and water at the core of this foundation. So, yeah. Yeah.
Ashraf, you had a question, Ashraf?
People throw a stone from the other side because they don't like your wall.
Yes.
So then all of a sudden you have very expensive, vulnerable resource that is maybe a political football between two countries.
This is a very good point, actually. Excellent question. There are two aspects of this, right? One of them is that the entire infrastructure will be protected, right, on the ground. But one of the things we're establishing are innovation centers. We're creating institutes along the border such that training and cooperation between the two places happen. Because in this particular case, and that can still happen, right? That could still happen, and you still have to protect that infrastructure. But the key element here is that we're creating opportunity for synergize people between two sides. You know what I mean? So you come to this center, we come and do training and workforce development and create the jobs and opportunity. That doesn't prevent completely people from throwing a stone because they're gonna do it regardless, right? But the idea is that, well, I contradict myself, right? But the idea is that you create an environment of cooperation and change the rhetoric.
Luciano, thank you so much.
Thank you.